G'day and welcome to another massive edition of the RDFNL Footy Show. Thanks to Ontime Delivery Solutions. My name's Yeendy. I'm joined by Tara Murray. Well, we're straight back into the tough stuff. We've got the footy kicking off this weekend, fresh off interleague duties. It's pretty hard to sort of switch from interleague mode, which we've been invested in for quite some time, back into the real stuff.
It is, and it's getting back into seeing where the ladder will really sort itself out. Obviously, to start the season, we've probably seen the teams we expected to be up towards the top of the ladder. Your Rupert's Woods, your Macedon, your Wallens, your Diggers Rest. They're probably the sides you saw expected to be up there. But now we'll see whether there's some surprise upsets, and probably the bottom half of that top six starts to work itself out as well.
Exactly right. Well, we'll touch on with our first big game of the weekend. We've got Riddle and Romsey. This is going to be massive for both sides, and no doubt the Redbacks, they'll be looking to extract a little bit of revenge after the disappointing knockout of the finals last year.
It is. I think this is clearly match of the round. I think there could be quite a few other one-sided results, but I expect this one to be close. As you mentioned last year, I think everyone went into that final between Riddle and Romsey. It was mixed. Two people thought were going to win, and Riddle quite easily got over the line in not the greatest conditions, but they had a really, really strong first half, which set up that win there. And I find these two sides are pretty similar. They've got a lot of young players. They've got a lot of experience. Well, they've both got premiership players in these teams, and they're probably around the same mark where they were last year. So it's going to be a quite interesting match. Neither side's probably had the ideal start. I think Romsey had a little bit of a slow start after not playing round one, but they've seemed to find form the last couple of weeks. And Riddle, traditionally slow starters, have started to get the wins on the board as well. So I think it's going to be a pretty interesting match.
I'll be fascinated with Riddle as a club probably over the next couple of seasons. But they are traditional slow starters. It's a tag that no club would be happy to have, I think, from a title perspective. They've really got to make a statement here and really finish this season strongly and really try and make an impact and get into the finals.
Exactly. I think they'll make finals, and it's about having an impact. They did have one last year a little bit, but then ended up getting knocked out. I think it was by Rupert's Wood in the end.
Yep.
So for them now, it's about beating these sides who are going to be at least around them on the ladder, or even possibly below them on the ladder. Then they can have a real go at those top sides. Obviously, they just fell short against Diggers Rest a few rounds ago. They only just fell short against Macedon in round one. So they've been around the mark, but it's about getting the wins on the board against sides they would want to beat to make finals.
Who wins this one?
I tip Riddle, but it could quite easily go either way. It's a match I think I'll end up going out and seeing, because I think not only in the football but the netball it is the match of the round, but it could quite easily go either way. I think Bombers have probably got that. They're a step ahead of Romsey, but there's not much between them.
Yeah, exactly. I haven't seen Romsey this year. I'm looking forward to seeing how they perform, and they're a unit that should have exceeded improved compared to last year as well, with a similar sort of playing group. Same coach. It does take a few years for that group to sort of gel, and no doubt they're on the right track as a club. So I'm eagerly awaiting just how they perform against a side that has a great history of being very successful for longer periods of time.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, definitely the match of the round. It could go either way.
Yeah, but we'll get your backside, trackside, check that one out. Another game will be quite interesting. Seeing how Macedon bounce back into some good form against Broadford, who are lacking a bit of confidence at the moment.
It is. I spoke to Skip Bray after the interleague clash. I actually had a quick chat about Broadford, how things are out there. He said it is tough, and probably for them the hardest thing is juggling how you play these young guys. You want to give them the experience, but at the same time you don't want to dampen their spirits, because if they suffer too many big losses and are really struggling, you might lose them to the game. So it is quite hard out there for Broadford, and I know Skip was pretty happy to get a win in the interleague because he hadn't had many in the last few years, so it was good for him there. But obviously I think Macedon are going to be way too strong. Macedon have probably been a little bit up and down in that first half of the season. They're coming off a loss to Diggers Rest before the break, so they'll be wanting to get back on the winners list.
How important is it for Macedon? I know we want to see Broadford succeed, but realistically Macedon are going to win this one, and they might win it considerably well. What sort of damage do you think, or what sort of key things do they need to be taking out of that game?
It's making sure they're doing everything right. So it's getting their structures right. Scoreboard's not the end-all be-all. As long as they get the win, it's about making sure you've got the right players in the right spots, you're doing the right things, you've got the right discipline, and then everything else will take care of itself. Look, it's likely going to be a big margin, but it's how they play the game itself.
Yeah, we'll see how much rain or water the Tony Clark Reserve takes in over the period of this week. We know conditions are expected to be fine over the weekend and might dry it out a little bit, especially with a little bit of a breeze. We've got Wallen and Melton Centrals. This could be a danger game for the Pies.
It is. It's quite interesting. Obviously, you've got Centrals who are coming off a win against Sunbury Kangaroos, and Sunbury Kangaroos took Wallen all the way. It was only the last 5 minutes that the Magpies got across the line there.
And at the same venue also.
At the same venue. So exactly. And you've got Centrals who have been in every single game this year. They've only won won the 2, but they've been in it until half time in every other game. So it'll be interesting to see Centrals take it up to Wallen. This is probably one of those games Wallen needs to try and get a strong, dominant four-quarter performance against these sides that have been a little bit better. They've only been good for a half or a quarter, that they need to play for full quarters.
Yeah, well, fortunately for the Pies, they have come into this contest on the back of a solid 8-quarter performance with recent really big victories, so that will hold them in good stead for the occasion. And we know they'll come out full of fire, but I think for Centrals, they shouldn't, if the margin does blow out a little bit, they shouldn't be disheartened by that. But then again, it is a game where on form they could really push within 5 goals, if not get a tight win.
Exactly, and that's why I think Centrals will be pretty competitive. I spoke to Matt Sproul after their last match, and he said they're improving every week, and it's just that little bit that they haven't been able to go in the second half with some of these other sides. So if they can stay in the game, they're a good chance to get the win.
Exactly, we know the Centrals can almost beat any team on the park at the moment. As you highlight, they have been in every contest, but yeah, Wallen will win that one. When in Heskett and Diggers rest, I don't think this is going to be as clean cut and dry for the Boroughs as what some may predict.
I think Boroughs will win it, but then obviously we saw last week the Hawks had closed the gap with those top sides, so it was only about the 30-odd point mark that they lost to Rupert's Wood. And for the Hawks, they want to get back on the winners list. They've obviously lost 2 in a row after winning the first 3, so they could quite easily be 3-3 and back in the pack if they don't win this one. The Hawks, they've shown they can beat anyone if they're playing their good brand of footy, but it's about making sure they're doing that against the top sides, and that's the question mark with the Hawks.
I think they did all right against Rupo in their last outing. They did sort of get within 4 or 5 goals in the third term, so there's a big chance for them, but providing that they can play with that confidence.
It is, and that's what I think we've seen, that they have closed the gap. That margin last year would have been 8, 9, 10, if not bigger, so they definitely have closed the gap. It's about seeing whether they can close it a little bit more and get a win over a top side, which would give them a lot of confidence.
We've got a big game, I think, between the Sharks and the Rams. How do you see this one panning out?
I think the Sharks are going to have a big win. They've shown everyone they've gone against this season. They've played really well. They've only been really probably, I think, tested once, and that was against Diggers Rest. So they've been quite easily accounting for everyone, and I expect a big win there.
Yeah, I can't argue with that one. Although Rockbank, out of the 3 teams to face very difficult losses the previous week, they were the better performed side, and they were able to hit the scoreboard, kick a couple of goals, and take some big positives out of there. I know the young star that missed out last week in the Interleague, I think it was Ricky Cameron. It just being around that group and being around the training for Interleague and the coaches there, I know he's a quality footballer and been a great footballer for a long period of time there for the Rams. So I think this will be a chance for him to step up and show exactly what he learned from the Interleague program.
He is, and speaking with Lee McInerney a couple of weeks ago, he said they put it on some of their young leaders, including Ricky Cameron, to take that next step up, and they've sort of shown that they do have the talent to take it to the best in this competition. As you mentioned, there is 3 sides who were on the end of big losses, and I think Rockbank's the furthest ahead of them. They've obviously had 2-3 years of this rebuild, and I think next year they'll look to really attack it, probably look to add a few more players to this mix. So for them, it's about continuing to develop and making sure they're doing the things right, because they are taking steps forward.
Last game, Lansfield and the Sunbury Kangaroos. Lansfield, they're just going to be have embraced the break and try and take a few positives out of this one. It's going to be a tough road for them.
It is. Obviously, Sunbury's had a lot of injuries though, so I think their last round they had 17 players out of their seniors and reserves, so that's probably the big thing for the Kangaroos. Who have they got in, who have they got out? I think they'll get their ruckman back in Bogut back this week, so that would be a big key to them to help that, because I know last match they had Jamie Cuffers basically did all the rucking, so a bit of the veterans back in there, not only retired but now taking the full ruck load himself in the seniors, so I don't think he'll ever retire properly, this guy. So.
No, well, the old cliche that goes with Cuffy has had more comebacks than Johnny Farnham, so and he knows that too, but he loves the game and loves playing with Ty, and Ty's a very good footballer, and both of them work off each other really well through the midfield, so I think he'll embrace the opportunity to do that as often as he can.
Exactly, and obviously with this one, I think Kangaroos were disappointed about their last match with Melton Central, so I'm expecting them to hit back and get the win. This is one that they need to win, because they obviously want to play finals, so they need to be beating these lower sides that all the other teams around them are doing. Lansfield, as we've said, they've really focused on the local element this season, and obviously not probably spending as much money as some of those other clubs. So for them, it's about just getting on the park, making sure they're playing some good football, and they'd love to reduce the margins of some of these losses.
Absolutely. On the back of last round's start in the RDFNL competition, I did get quite a few questions from footy fans going, well, there's 3 big losses over the weekend. What's going on with the competition? I address that very simply, particularly through Goldfields. The weather the day a few weeks ago, where it was really windy, it was really wet. The weather was quite chaotic. It was just a day where anything could happen, and I think that I don't think people should be reading into that this is the standard of a competition. We're going to see this as a common formality. I don't think there's to be concern. It was just the weather played tricks, and it affected all sorts of football games right across the region in ways that didn't go through the usual trend.
And I think obviously we have got teams at different parts of their thing. You've got your likes of Rockbank, Broadford and Lansfield are all rebuilding. So they're not spending as much money as some of those other clubs. So you are going to get results that do have a decent margin. But you look at the likes of Wood and Heskett, Melton Centrals, who have been down the bottom and been on the end of some of these results the last few years. They're starting to build up. We're starting to see the fruits of those labours, and they're getting the wins and starting to make those developments. So obviously, yes, you are going to get some big results here and there, but at the same time, you've got to look what are they doing for the long-term future of the club? Are they making it so their clubs are sustainable? And that's what I think these three clubs are doing.
Exactly. Well, Tara, I don't know about what you're going to do as the weekend fast approaches, but I am really looking forward to setting up the laptop and kicking back and watching my favourite YouTube channel, which is Rupert's Wood FNC TV. That is going absolutely bonkers. I really love watching those guys rip it up every single week. It's fantastic. Great interviews, great insights, and all the excitement going on. I hope we do see Todd Podolzak get ripped into about his new house because he's becoming an adult now. I would love to see some of those questions asked.
And obviously probably a few fines for him this week too, getting best on ground in the Interleague. So probably a big week for him in several reasons.
Absolutely, Todd. We will make sure that your photo gets published as many times as possible so that your mortgage becomes very, very difficult to maintain over the short-term future, which I know the Shark Boys, they will get in there and they will pump you up so you have to cough up more fines as well, so you're going to be in a bit of strife. So that's what happens when you become a homeowner. Things are supposed to tighten up a little bit, and we know the players have been getting lots of fines through Shark TV and, of course, through our RDFNL footy shows as well, which is great. That's what we want to... We're here to set up the dreams of successful footy netball trips. We're not here to crash them. That's my take on that one. Tara, thanks so much for joining us this week. We look forward to catching up with you next week and reading up on all the exciting stories that you'll produce as you cover the latest round of RDFNL Senior Football.
Thanks for having me.